Carlos Zambrano, the Big Z. El Toro. He started over 300 games in his career. He won 130 of those starts. A 3-time All-Star, a 3-time Silver Slugger, finished top 5 in Cy Young voting 3 different times. He started on opening day 6 years in a row for the Cubs, a team record. He got robbed of a no-hitter, then eventually threw one 5 years later. He might be the best hitting pitcher of the 21st century with 23 career home runs. But more memorable than all of those things, he might be the angriest man I've ever seen on a baseball field. I've seen him impale a Gatorade jug, bump umpires, fight his own battery mate, scold his star first baseman, brush back and hit more batters than you could count, and even retire mid-game after getting ejected. If nothing else, Zambrano wore his emotions on his sleeve. He accomplished a lot in his career despite his angered theatrics, and today we're going to dive into both ends of this pool. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure you subscribe to the Jolly Olive channel and ring the bell for all future notifications. Zambrano burst onto the scene in what was building up to be a magical season in 2003 for the Cubs. In a rotation headlined by established starters in Kerry Wood, Mark Pryor, and Matt Clement, it was Zambrano that ascended to the top of the staff in a breakout season. The highlight of his young career came in August of 2003. 2 starts removed from a 5-hit shutout against the Houston Astros, Zambrano faced off against Curt Schilling in the Arizona Diamondbacks. Schilling struck out 14 batters over 8 quality innings, but he was not the story in this game. Zambrano retired his first 12 batters in order, walked a batter in the 5th, then retired another 11 in a row. With 2 outs in the 8th, Big Z was 4 outs away from a no-hitter in his first full season as a starter. Then, this Shea Hillenbrand infield hit probably should have been ruled out, but instead he was called safe on a close play at first, and there was no replay back then either. Zambrano did get the next 3 batters out in order, which would have ended the game and completed the no-hitter. Instead, he ended up allowing a run in a complete game win. This one got away, and it would be years before he'd get another shot at glory. Despite coming up short against the Snakes, Zambrano had a fantastic season. He led the Cubs staff in innings pitched and home run per 9 rate, with his 3.11 ERA placing in the top 10 of National League starting pitchers. The Cubs improved 21 wins from their 67 win mark a year prior. Control issues were still very much apparent for the young flamethrower, as the 22-year-old walked 94 batters this season, tied for 4th highest in the National League. But thanks to his help, the Cubs boasted a fearsome Big 3 heading into that year's playoffs. Zambrano didn't walk a single batter in a start against the Braves in the National League Division Series, but the 11 hits he allowed would lose a pivotal Game 2 for the Cubs. But they take home that series and hand him the ball for Game 1 of the National League Championship Series against the Florida Marlins. During the regular season, he spun 12 innings of 1-run ball over 2 dominant starts against this team. In the playoffs, though, not so much. After getting handed a 4-0 lead, he gave up that lead in the 3rd as a trio of home runs completed a 5-run rally for the Fish. Zambrano and Beckett dueled it out for 6 innings from there, but in the end, the Marlins took the first game of the set 9-8 in extras. His best playoff start came in Game 5, allowing 2 runs over 5 innings, but he was completely outshined by Josh Beckett's complete game shutout, and for the 3rd time, the Cubs lost a playoff game started by Carlos Zambrano. It was a crushing end to a great season for Chicago, but for Zambrano, it was just the beginning of a strong career. At this point in Zambrano's career, he was more known as a ferocious competitor rather than a man who might have needed counseling for his anger. But as the years went on, despite his play on the field, the issue of his emotions would begin to rear their ugly head. In 2004, he achieved the best single-season ERA mark of his career at 2.75 in 31 starts, and he also held the longest scoreless streak in the big leagues that season to kick off May. His best month, though, came during his strong September, with the Cubs fighting to return to the playoffs. Zambrano rewrote the narrative on his struggles in big games with some clutch performances, tossing 41 innings with a 1.96 ERA as the Cubs won 5 of his 6 starts that month. He won Pitcher of the Month honors in the National League, but it wasn't enough for the Cubs, who lost 7 of their last 9 games and fell 3 games short of a playoff berth despite winning 89 games total. The next year, Zambrano threw a career-best 223 innings in 2005 to complete a trio of dominant seasons. He got the opening day nod for the first time this year, kicking off a 6-year streak of getting the ball in the first game of the season, the longest such streak in Cubs history. From 2003 to 2005, he had the 4th best ERA in baseball, with his 3.05 mark outdoing the likes of Roy Halladay and Randy Johnson. It was only bested by Pedro Martinez, Roger Clemens, and Johan Santana. That's some pretty insane company. The best part of his 2005 season might have been his 300 batting average though. We somehow haven't even mentioned this guy's hitting yet. In 80 at-bats that year, Zambrano smacked a home run and 2 triples en route to a 763 OPS. That OPS is just one tick worse than 2022 Ronald Acuna Jr., the guy who's probably going to win MVP this year. So they're essentially the same player. I will not be reading any comments debating this. From 2003 to 2011, Zambrano hit 253 with 23 home runs and 69 RBIs in 674 plate appearances, which is essentially one full season worth of at-bats. I dove into the numbers. You know, that line is becoming almost as cliche as like, I'm hacking into the mainframe.
Hacked into the mainframe.
You're gonna run that against the mainframe for me, okay? I hacked into the mainframe.
I hacked into the mainframe, and for the hitting prime of his career, Zambrano was essentially equivalent to 2012 Jimmy Rollins. Obviously not as fast or athletic, but a switch-hitting contact bat with some obvious pop. Funnily enough, Zambrano owned Rollins in their respective matchups, holding him to just a 107 batting average and 28 plate appearances. Zambrano's one of just 2 pitchers since 1961 with 3 or more seasons hitting at least 4 home runs. Only Madison Bumgarner has had multiple such seasons in the 21st century, and Zambrano was even called on to pinch hit 20 times in his career. Carlos Zambrano was the formula. Shohei Ohtani was the solution. While his hitting was erratic but exciting, his pitching during his prime was remarkably consistent. He was the only pitcher from 2003 to 2006 to throw over 200 innings with an ERA under 3.5 every season. From 2003 to 2007, he was a top 5 MLB pitcher in strikeouts, earned run average, innings pitched, and home runs allowed. You can extend that data range 3 more years to 2010 and you'll get similarly impressive results. He's top 10 or top 15 in all of these major categories again. The guy was a dog on the mound, rarely injured and pumping heat. His control was definitely still an issue even in his best years, but the fact that he placed top 5 in Cy Young voting both years where he led the league in free passes should tell you everything you need to know. Even with his accuracy woes, he was still very effective. But speaking of things being out of control, his temper issues certainly began to rear their ugly head as he progressed further into his career. Remember that opening day streak I mentioned before? Cubs fans remember that, but what they would probably like to forget is that Zambrano got tossed in the 5th inning for arguing balls and strikes with umpire Dale Scott. Hey, he's a friend of John Boy Media. He actually saw me hit a home run once. Pretty cool. Anyways, this was a troubling trend that the Northside faithful only saw more and more of from this point. Still, the quality pitching was enough for the Cubs to want to keep him around. Chicago agreed to a 7-year extension with Zambrano worth $91.5 million in 2007, but things turned ugly quickly following this signing. In the first year of the deal, in the midst of a division-winning season that started out slow, Zambrano got into an altercation with his own catcher, Michael Barrett, whose passed ball and bad throw led to an unearned run, then a 7-run rally for the Braves as his start unraveled. Michael Barrett's gotten into other fights, so it's not totally surprising that these two butted heads. Later in the year, he called Cubs fans selfish for booing him after his 5th consecutive losing start in the first year of his new deal. His worst meltdown came the following year in 2008 during a matchup with the Pirates. After throwing a wild pitch that narrowly allowed Niger Morgan to score, he unleashed a tirade on umpire Mark Carlson. After bumping him in his rage, he was tossed from the game, and El Toro subsequently fired the ball into the outfield, spiked his glove into the dugout, and sent this Gatorade jug to Pound Town. He got suspended for 6 games and was fined $3,000, and he even missed the team's flight to Atlanta for their next series. But much like his whole career, his story was one of ebbs and flows. When he finally returned to the mound, he struck out 7 Braves and hit the game-winning home run to secure his 100th career win. While his anger levels began to show up in public displays more and more, his seemingly endless pursuit of baseball history continued on the field. And just a couple months after this series of fiascos, Zambrano had arguably his most memorable moment. Let's quickly backtrack a second. Following his near no-hitter that he probably should have had in 2003, Zambrano had multiple brushes with the no-hitter in the years that followed as well. On June 5th in 2006, he was perfect through 8 innings against the Houston Astros. Hey, there they are again. Before a Preston Wilson 1-out single broke up the dream. A year later, almost exactly to the day, he took a no-hitter into the 8th inning against the Padres, where an infield single broke things up again. Worse yet, he actually lost this game 1-0 on a Russell Branyan solo home run. Then, September 14th, 2008, he faced those Houston Astros yet again, a team he consistently dominated throughout his career. His 2.59 ERA against Houston was his best versus any team he made at least 15 careers start against. I think the Yankees are actually going to try trading for him this season. Uniquely set in a neutral site due to Hurricane Ike, the game took place in Milwaukee at Miller Park. "No, I will not acknowledge you, American Family Field. Go away. You're not invited to the dinner table." The Cubs hadn't seen a no-hitter since 1972 when Milt Pappas no-hit the Padres. That is a very real and very awesome name. It was a 31-year drought. It probably didn't help that the Astros had won 14 of 15 games heading into this matchup, but his control issues subsided as he topped out at 98 miles per hour and walked just one batter in the fourth. Zambrano, confronted with another 8th inning in pursuit of glory, conquered his demons. He battled Hunter Pence to a full count and induced a flyout, then got David Newhan to strike out in another full count afterward. He threw just 10 pitches in the 9th inning to close things out, striking out Darren Erstad to end it. For a moment, Carlos Zambrano was himself again, dominant on the mound, overpowering hitters, no other distractions, and he finally had a no-hitter to show for it. The Cubs returned to the playoffs in those 2007 and 2008 seasons. Zambrano tossed quality starts in both of their National League Division Series matchups, but as he redeemed his playoff resume, Chicago came out on the short end in both seasons. The no-hitter and playoff redemption could have been the turning point for Zambrano's career, but instead, he's remembered mostly for the tirades that brought him back into the media spotlight for all the wrong reasons. Following 2008, the later years of his contract extension provided more frustration than success. The Cubs never won more than 83 games in the 3 years that followed, and Zambrano didn't do much to help aside from eating up innings. His struggles earned him a temporary demotion to the bullpen in 2010, and things hit a new low later in the year. After another bad start, Zambrano got into a screaming bout with first baseman Derek Lee over a play he failed to make. The two had to be separated, and Carlos was suspended indefinitely following the altercation, ordered by the team to undergo anger management courses to control his rage. But like I said before, ebbs and flows. Zambrano returned later that year and finished the season with a dominant stretch. He managed a 1.06 ERA in 60 innings in his final 9 starts of the year, only furthering the question of how dominant he could be if he could just get his emotions in order. His contract with the Cubs came to a frustrating end in 2011. In a start against the Atlanta Braves, Zambrano allowed 5 home runs in a blow-up outing. After the 5th home run, he threw inside to Chipper Jones twice before getting ejected from the game entirely. In his latest tirade, Zambrano stormed to the locker room to clear out his things and informally retire from the team. He was once again suspended by the Cubs, only this seemed to be the final straw. When he apologized and attempted to return a week later, the Cubs refused this time and kept him inactive for the remainder of the year. And that's how this explosive career fizzled out. If you look up the name Carlos Zambrano, the top result will almost certainly be an ejection, an argument, or a fight of some kind. But outside of his angry lapses in judgment, he stands as one of the best pitchers of the 2000s. His accomplishments should not be understated, but I'd be lying if I said they weren't completely overshadowed by his lowlights. It really makes you wonder, how good could have Zambrano been had he just gotten his anger under control? We'll never know, and now we know him as the angriest man in baseball. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and now a word from today's sponsor. Thank you to the DraftKings Sportsbook for sponsoring today's Jolly Olive video. New customers right now can bet just $5 and win $200 in bonus bets instantly. Try that out on some same game parlays. Use that bonus bet money like I did on this Mets parlay that hit a week ago. Francisco Alvarez to hit a home run, Kodai Senga with 5 strikeouts and a Mets W. That netted me over $100, and you can do the same right now at DraftKings. Make sure you bet responsibly. Download their app now. Use code OLIVE to take advantage of this offer. $5 and win $200 in bonus bets instantly, only at the DraftKings Sportsbook. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. Any resources you might need for a gambling problem or addiction are listed down below. Thank you once again to DraftKings for sponsoring today's video, and I'll see you guys next time.